Hello, I'm Sean McAngus, and welcome back to another episode of the Highland podcast. Today's guest is Gavin Morrison. He speaks about his time at Inverness, Caley, loan spells, which included a short period of time in Iceland, Brora success, winning the Highland League and the Lowland League, dramatic SPFL playoffs, and much more. Hope you enjoy this interview. Gavin, what would you say is your kind of earliest memories of playing football?
I'd probably say playing in the back garden. Obviously where I grew up in Drakey's, just in the back of my mum and dad's house there. Yeah, as I got older, there was a wee park just down the road from us, Myers Park. So we just used to meet there and kick the ball about. But yeah, probably earliest memories will be in the back garden.
What do you think was the kind of moment that you thought, oh, I could play football, would you say?
Okay, it probably came quite late for me. I was involved in the Cali setup from probably under 12s age group, but I never really played all that much at the weekends. They used to play their games on a Sunday, and still do obviously at youth level, but with my mum's faith, she's a Christian. She wasn't keen on me playing on a Sunday, so I never really thought I had much of a chance. Probably until about 15s, under 15s. I think it was my second year at under 15s. Speaking with the coaches and the boys, obviously putting a lot of pressure on to play as well, and eventually my old man had to convince my mum to let me go and play some football on a Sunday. So I think at that point it started to become a bit more real. But yeah, I'd probably say about that 15, 16, I started thinking maybe got a wee chance here.
Yeah, so who were kind of some of the guys that people would know that you were kind of playing alongside at that kind of age group?
So I was playing a year down. Just with my date of birth being in January. So the guys that I'd maybe spend a year with, and then they would move on. The likes of Dale Gillespie. I played with him from P7. He moved from Hall into Drakey's, and we played together there, and then right the way through Mulburn as well. He was one that obviously made it through to the first team at Caley, and has had a great Highland League career as well. But obviously Ian Penwright as well. We had ding dongs against Drakey's wee Crown at that time, so it was. I'm still good friends with Ian Fife. Played against him right the way through the age groups as well. So, aye, these were the sort of boys that we were playing alongside and kicking about with. Yeah.
Yeah, so what was the experience going right through the youth and up to the first team? How did you find that?
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Obviously hugely frustrating not being able to play. Used to train during the week, but could never play at the weekend. But when I got that chance to play at the weekend, I absolutely loved it. I look back at the boys that I was able to share the pitch with, and also the coaches as well that helped me through. Ian Polworth and Scott Kelliker were huge influences on me. Hard on me, but it was exactly what I needed. At that stage of my life, didn't have the best of attitudes, didn't have the best fitness levels either, and would get reminded of that by Kel almost every week. But no, they were great with me, absolutely brilliant, and then managed to get selected for the full time in under 19s, which when you get there, that's when it really starts hitting home. You've got a chance to make it, because it's so hard to get there. You see the amount of boys that come and go. And I was quite a late developer in terms of playing time on the pitch. So I was just so grateful to get there and get that opportunity.
What do you remember about your debut? Was a 7-0 win against Ayr United? Was that your senior
Yeah,
debut?
yeah. So yeah, the league was already sewn up. I remember it was a Tuesday night. I think Dundee were playing because they were well ahead. at the top of the league and slipped up, threw it away at the end, and I wasn't really a part of it, to be honest with you. Obviously training in amongst it, but zero contribution on the pitch. But yeah, I remember it Tuesday night or Wednesday night. I can't remember what it was. Midweek anyway. All the boys were, texting after Dundee dropped points and we'd won the league. As you can imagine, there was a meeting spot in town and enjoyed themselves and had to pretend they weren't hungover for the gaffer the next morning. So no, but that was we travelled down to Ayr United. We stayed in the hotel the night before. Team was selected the day before, so we knew what the team was. I wasn't in it, and then went down for breakfast that morning. And Terry Butcher pulled me to the side and said that Lee Cox had been up all night, sick, not feeling well, not fit to play, so he was throwing me in. That was probably perfect for me because if I knew that I was playing, I probably would have been up all night myself. But no, it was a really nice surprise. So I just remember, phoning home, telling my dad, and then try to focus on the game. But that group of players, the experience that was within it and the characters that were within it as well, they were so good with me. Um, Really protected me through my debut. And it's, an absolute dream debut. Game kicks off and you've got Richie Foran, Adam Rooney, and Johnny Hayes just on fire, and you're up 3-0 before you know it, and you think, oh, yeah, could get used to this. But unfortunately, every game of football's not like that.
Yeah, so how important were kind of players like that in terms of easing you into, breaking into the first team?
Oh, brilliant. When I think back, sat beside Ross Tokley in the first team dressing room, he was brilliant with me. Used to pick me up in the mornings, make sure I was, sometimes he was waking me up, sleeping in, but he would always make sure that I made it. Russell Duncan, Golobeck, Grant Monroe, and then, you look at Richie Foran, absolute leader. He was great with making sure that young boys knew what it took. I think he was big on that. Nothing came easy, and he would let you know. So it was a brilliant dressing room. It really was. I had a great mix of guys like Johnny Hayes and Lee Cox that were so, youthful and full of energy, and then the older guys with the experience to rein them in when they needed to. But it was so much fun, being involved in that, and the guidance that you got off the older players was great.
Yeah, so what do you think was the kind of biggest was there any like big advice that you got from certain players at that time in terms of adjusting to?
I remember Granty pulled me aside when I first went into training with the first team, and a big handshake and arm in the shoulder, sort of. If you need anything, just let me know. And at that moment in time, he was the captain of the club, obviously, and I remember thinking, he didn't need to do that because I'm not sure he would have known who I was. I was just thrown into a first team training session. Um, and yeah, he made sure he made time for me, and I thought, that's the sort of values that I would like to have. Making sure that I'm looking out for teammates and especially younger players as well. But yeah, Richie Foran was I was quite close with Richie. He got involved in a couple of my contract negotiations and really looked out for me. Um, but yeah, he was so big on hard work. I remember the way he played. He was, um, just wore his heart on his sleeve and give Caley absolutely everything. And he would let players know when their efforts were slightly below the level they needed to be. So probably him as well. He helped shape, my early stages of my football career, I'd say.
Yeah, so what was it like playing under Terry Butcher?
Um, difficult, difficult. Obviously, big character. Demands a lot. Um, says it how it is. He would really come for guys. And, you know, there's no secrets there. You know, there's holes in the manager's office and corridor walls, and you know, doors getting ripped off, and you know, it's who he was. So when it wasn't going well, it was difficult. Um, but he was good. He was good with the young players. You know, he recognised there was talent there. You know, you look at the opportunities you know, the opportunity that he gave me, obviously, but when you look at the opportunities that he gave, like likes of Graham Shinney, Nick Ross, Shane Sutherland, he recognised talent and wanted to get these guys game time and to push their careers on. So yeah, he was good that way.
Yeah, any standout moments for you with him? Any funny stories or interactions that you had with him?
I remember there's a few that I probably can't say, but there was one that I enjoyed quite a lot when we went down to Celtic Park and we were doing really well in the lead up to this game, and he was adamant that we were going down to Celtic Park to win the game. And you know, we were on this run, and you know, we're sitting at the top half of the table, and we go down there, and I think David Proctor was playing right back against Georgios Samaras, good player, and the boys were doing great. I was on the bench, and the boys were doing brilliant. I think it was 0-0 at half time, and I think they scored late on and won the game 2-0. And he came into the dressing room and absolutely lost it. So you go into the dressing room at Celtic Park, and there's all the food laid out for you and everything, and you know, it's a lovely big dressing room and the lockers, and he starts. I think he ripped a locker door off one of the lockers. The food is all everywhere. Honestly, it's on the ceiling. There's the tea and coffee canisters. They've been volleyed off the masseur's bed. Oh, honestly, the place got turned upside down. And I just remember him screaming at the ceiling, um, screaming at Celtic to send him the bill. Oh man! And we're all sitting there, you know, seeing this guy absolutely lose it. And you know, you know what it's like. You can't even look up to make eye contact. But deep down, I'm thinking, "Oh man, I can't believe this." But sure enough, the bill got sent. I think a week later, and he had to explain himself to the club secretary. But yeah, one of many blow-ups from Terry Butcher.
Yeah. Do you think it's just because mentality wise, because you were winning, you're on such a good run, he was just expecting just for it
Oh
to
yeah,
continue?
yeah. He was see one thing he was absolutely brilliant at was like I said, if we were winning and the boys were playing well, he was great. He was you know, really lively about the training ground. He was, you know, he would really get an extra sort of 5-10% out the group. Um, but you know, the guy's led his country. You know, he's a winner. So you know, his mentality, the way he's lived his life, he probably struggles with defeat a bit more than the
Hmm.
average person. So yeah, you can understand the frustration and the anger, but yeah, he's had some blowouts.
Hmm. So in those kind of Cali teams that you played in, who would you say were kind of the standout kind of characters that were up for a laugh and kind of good for the changing room, would you say?
Uh, Wee Johnny, without a doubt. Wee Johnny Hayes. Him and Coxie came up at the same time, knew each other from, I think it was Leicester youth team they both played at together. They were magic together, honestly. Brilliant. Lived together for a while. They were great. Really good. The two of them. You know, I still keep in touch with Johnny now and again. Um, but and obviously Coxie moved away. I don't keep in touch with him as much. But the two of them together were brilliant. You know, just pranking and yeah, lots of clothing and footwear going missing in the dressing room, and yeah, certain things ending up in people's shoes that you wouldn't expect. But brilliant, the two of them together.
Yeah, so how important is that aspect of, in terms of football, the characters and, building team morale?
It's everything. It's everything. You know, I've I've unfortunately came to the end of my playing career just last year there, and it's a thing that I know that I'll miss the most. Being inside a dressing room, um, you're creating a culture when you're in there, and you're making that place your own, and you need characters to do it. You need big personalities to do it, and you need big personalities to get the shyer guys out their shells. Um, but it's the best place, in terms of football. Being in the dressing room, it's the best place you can be, especially when things are going well. There's not a better feeling in football.
Yeah. So moving on, obviously you had a couple of loan spells. You were at Elgin City, and then you were also away abroad as well. How was that, and how did that come about?
So the loan to Grindavík, that was Terry Butcher's mate was the manager out there. Big Icelandic guy called Guðjón Thirdarson or something like that. It actually almost happened the summer before. But I'm never great in pre-season. Takes me a few weeks to get going. So Terry Butcher recognised this and said, "Look, instead of you coming back in day one pre-season, you've not played. How about you go and play summer football for an Icelandic team?" So training every day. They were sort of like a hybrid of full-time and part-time players. So it was an opportunity for me to go out there, train full-time, play a couple of games a week in the summer league, then come back in a couple of weeks late for pre-season, but hit the ground running. So yeah, I was all for it, and then I can't remember what happened the first year it came about, but it fell through, and that was it. But then the next year he brought it up again, so I thought, there's nothing to lose, let's go for it. But um, yeah, if I thought Terry Butcher was bad in terms of team talks and how he could treat his players after a loss, this guy took the biscuit. Guyon was tough, difficult character. Didn't didn't enjoy, I loved being there in terms of the place and the people, absolutely brilliant and beautiful place. But no, his ways and his management style, not for me. And I struggled with it, to be fair. I was still young, obviously went out there myself, and things just didn't work out. So it actually ended up them terminating the loan early. I was out there with another English lad, Jordan his name was, and then there was Tommy Amiobi as well. So Shola Amiobi's youngest brother. He was out there playing in the same side. So I used to pal about. The three of us would, head round there. There's there's no um there's no evening time really over there. It's just light the whole way through. So you'd just be up all hours playing FIFA or whatever else. We were all just young and stupid and staying up to all hours, not probably preparing as best we could for training the next day. But that part I loved. But football inside didn't go too well.
Was it just like too overbearing and kind of just
I sort of got warned about him when I landed there, when I met the boys. Had a couple of training sessions, and then there was a really awkward moment on my first training session actually. So I got in the loan agreement that I could um, fly out my girlfriend at the time, Victoria, who's now my wife, but could fly her out, and then my mum and dad were to come out as well, and that was all agreed. And then he brought it up in front of all the boys on the first training session. Basically said that he wasn't told about it. It's coming out his transfer budget. He'd be cancelling the flights if I ever went to book them. I thought that was a really weird thing to do night one, in front of all the boys. Just come and speak to me to the side. So he was a bit of a bully, proper old school. Which is fine if you do it at the right times. I guess it works for some people, but yeah, it was. We got off on the wrong foot.
Hmm. So what was the kind of standard of football like out there?
Yeah, it was good. We were down the bottom end of the league, so we weren't great. But the teams at the top, they're the teams that you see because we were in the top division. So it's the teams that you see in the sort of Europa League, Europa Conference stages, the best ones. So I think at the time it was FL and I forget the other team, but they were the two best sides at the time. But no, some really talented players. It was difficult, it was difficult for me going in there, still young, in a relegation battle against decent sides that were better than us. So it was challenging. But now overall, a great experience for me.
Yeah, so how did you find it going back to Scotland after that spell?
Aye, pretty nervous going into day one of pre-season after what had happened over in Iceland. It was a bit of a falling out to end things. Obviously, then after that, the loan got terminated, so it was pretty nervous couple of weeks thinking, how's Terry Butcher going to take this? But to be fair to him, day one, he didn't say a word to me. Went out, we did day one of pre-season. I came back in. Richie Foran came and got me and says the gaffer wants to see you. So I went in to see him thinking I'm about to get absolutely roasted here. But no, he just sat me down and said, look, I've spoken to Guyon, disappointed at how it went, but let's just forget about it. Clean slate. I'll treat you how you behave over here, kind of thing. I tried to speak up for myself at the time, but it was his close mate. He just said he didn't want to hear it. He wouldn't change his mind on it. He trusts Guyon, and that was it. So we just had to accept it and move on. And it was never brought up again, so it was fine actually.
Obviously, you went on to go on loan to Elgin City. How did you find that?
Aye, that was I remember that one. Looking back, it's a moment that I probably regret a wee bit. I was just desperate to play and I wasn't playing, and I'd been told that I was getting released, so I got told around Christmas time that I was getting released at the end of the season to go and find a new club. So I remember Owain Tudor Jones it was Tokes on my left and Owain Tudor Jones on my right in the dressing room. And I remember him saying to me, you've got, say, 4 or 5 months to the end of the season. You never know what's going to happen. Yeah, he's told you you're out your plans, but there could be, you're out his plan, sorry, but there could be, an injury crisis. There could be suspensions. You never know. You might find yourself in a match day squad again. You could be training well. You never know. And me being young and just desperate to play, um, pushed the loan move through to Elgin. I just wanted to go and play. And sure enough, about a month later, I'm League Two with Elgin on loan, and I think Coxey got injured, Richie Foran was injured. Um, I can't remember the others that were in there. Owain Tudor Jones was injured, and I think Ross Tokley ended up getting thrown in centre mid at the time. And I remember Jonesy saying to me, if you just listened, and I'm not saying that I would have gone in there. He probably knowing knowing Terry Butcher, he probably would have picked Ross Tokley over me anyway. So, but nah, it was one of those moments you look back on and think, maybe should have been a bit more patient. But hey, that's football.
Yeah. So in terms of after, how did you find dealing with being released by Caley? How did you cope with that?
It was difficult. Don't get me wrong, it was difficult at the time. You obviously feel like a failure. If I look back, I never really made it. Yeah, I had 4 years within the first team, but I didn't pick up enough games to actually say that, you know, I'd established myself as a first team player, nowhere near it. So, there's obviously the embarrassment, the disappointment, and that sort of feeling of failing. But I quickly looked at it as an opportunity, to go in a different direction. It was nice to feel wanted again. It was part-time football in the Highland League. But when I ended up going and signing for Brora, it was and taking the path that I've taken, it's the best thing I've done. It was such an enjoyable time at Brora, stepping out of a really difficult time, not playing all that much, feeling loads of frustration, to then going in and being in the team every week and winning games of football and lifting trophies. It was great.
Yeah, so did you ever have other options at that time on whether to stay full time or go else?
No, no, not at all. There was no options to stay full time. You've got the usual agents trying to help you. I never had an agent, but as soon as I got released, a couple got in touch, and there was, they're trying to sell you the dream of Australia and
Yeah.
back to Iceland. But no, I never wanted to do it. I'd been over, and I knew that my future was going to be, in the Inverness area. So that's where I wanted to stay. So at that time, there was a wee bit of interest from Elgin, but nothing too strong. And then it was really Brora and Nairn. I don't know if you remember it, but at that time, that was the two that were really going for it for the league. And in the end, I chose to go to Brora.
What was it like playing under Davy Kirkwood? What was he like as a manager? Because he's a
Aye,
good
good.
character.
Very relaxed, very laid back. Um, I would say he really let players play. The ball players, he would love just letting them go and play, letting them go and try things, and it really brought the best out of them, and that sort of creative nature out of them. Yeah, but I very, very laid back. And that was a huge difference to me, obviously coming from the environment where I'd been and then stepping into an environment where, um, Kirky was really chilled out, easygoing, nice guy. He was always try and help you. He would always try and give you advice, which was great. And he was really good. He was again really good with the younger players, that we had at the time.
Yeah. What was it like being in that Brora team? Because they just seemed unstoppable at times.
It was amazing. It was amazing. We knew we had a good team, stepping into the season. And the season where we've gone unbeaten in the league, to lift the trophy, it's something that not many people will experience. But it was such an amazing environment to be in. We created this environment within the dressing room where everyone really challenged each other. Everyone was calling each other out if people weren't quite at it. But again, the closeness within that group, the praise that we would give each other, the celebrations that we'd have after wins. The great thing about Brora and its location is that a lot of the boys will come from Inverness, so pretty much every day is an away day.
Hmm.
The boys would meet in Inverness, they'd jump on the bus together, be playing cards, it'd be, chatting away, whatever it is. You go up, play your game in Brora, or you travel through to Aberdeen way or wherever it is, get back on the bus, and straight away, the beers are out and guys are singing and music's on, and it's a brilliant sort of environment for players to go and really enjoy themselves, because it's you know I've seen it, when I went down the road and you're having to drive to games, when I was at Spartans and Cowdenbeath and whatever, you're having to drive to games in twos and threes. It's so difficult to create those bonds. But when we were at Brora, everyone's on the bus together on the way up, everyone's on the bus together on the way down, real friendships getting formed. But yeah, feel it being a part of that team. It's something that I look back on, so proud of. Obviously winning the league, at any level is a great achievement. But to go and do it unbeaten, never would have thought that, never would have expected it. But we did it, and it's something that I'll definitely look back on in years to come, with really fond memories.
Yeah, and if even going through the team, like you had like so many talented players and a lot of guys you actually played with at Caley as well. How did you find that? Because it's swings and
Oh,
roundabouts. Like
yeah, yeah. No, it was great. I think it was Golly that phoned me, Stuart Gollbeck, when I got released. Saying there was interest from Brora and would I want to speak to them. So it was him that got in touch first, and then I spoke to Ben Mackay, who's obviously still heavily involved with the club. Um, but yeah, then obviously we got there was Tokes, there was Richie Hart, there was Grant Monroe, there was Xander Sutherland, who I knew from his time at Inverness as well. But we had so much talent throughout the team. When you look at the team we had, it was amazing, absolutely amazing, the talent within the team. Um, Two deadly strikers up front in Sid and Xander, pace on the wing with wee Chubbs. I had myself, Dale, and Digger, sort of that midfield 2-3, but Digger out on the right and coming in to help us. And then the back four just solid. We had Big Tokes, Grant Monroe, Scotty Houston, um, and Colin Williamson as well. And forgetting there for the first season, Richie Hart being in there, he was an absolute joy to play with. He was so good, so good. But nah, great times.
Yeah.
So
So was there any in that season that you lifted your first Highland League title trophy? Was there any certain games that kind of stood out for you?
I think it was the first season where we beat Cove maybe 3-0 down there. I think that was the first season. But no, that was a big stamp to put on Cove and a message to the rest of the league. Cove are such a strong side and full of brilliant players as well. And to go down there and win 3-0 was a real message that we sent out. And that's when, you have those bus journeys that are, we stop off in Fochabers and you start making these memories together. That's when you start building those relationships with the boys in the bus and realizing that something special that can be done in that season. Probably another one was Nairn. Obviously, the first game that we went to play in Nairn, there was huge hype all around it. I think the first time we played them was at Station Park, but yeah, we won through there as well, and that was another sort of message sent to everyone. But no, it's just when you look back and try and remember all the games, it's difficult. It's difficult to remember them all, but um, aye, some big wins in there. Great, great, great memories.
Yeah, and it seemed like in that team every time you went forward you would score because I remember I was at the Keith game when you lifted the league and I remember every time you went forward, didn't matter who it was, it just seemed like you were going to score. I think if it wasn't for Daniel Bell that game you'd probably have
Yeah,
scored more. Um
yeah, he had a very good game that day. But no, I mean, when you look at Chubbs's pace that he had back in the day, and he's still sharp as a tack now. I just seen him play, just last week. But the pace that he had, that Xander had, he had Digger, who's such a willing runner. You had Dale that could, create something from nothing and pick a pass and score from the edge of the box. And Sid Mackay would score about 50 goals a season, and Xander wouldn't be too far behind him. And then you had the physical threat from set pieces from all the big boys at the back. It was goal threats all around the park. I think I was probably the only one that wasn't a goal threat, to be honest with you. But nah, it was some team. And then of course we had Big Joe in behind us as well. That was ah, best goalie I've ever played with.
yeah, so do you remember any anything about the celebrations that night after winning league?
Aye, a bit foggy now. Nah, but the first time we won it, I just remember us getting on the bus and heading back to Fochabers and meeting all the fans. All the fans were waiting on us, and that was pretty special, because the fans up there, they care so much about the club. They really care, and probably and well hadn't had anything to celebrate in such a long time, and for us to go and win something for them, because they backed us all the way. They were great home and away. They were absolutely brilliant, and to go back there and spend that bit of time with them celebrating in Fochabers was really special. And then, aye, as you can imagine, once the boys got back on with the carryouts at Fochabers, it was yeah, pretty crazy on the bus home.
Yeah, I remember because I was on they were filming, SHL TV, and
Yeah,
I remember I was on the the pitch because I was doing the interviews at the time for filming. I remember nearly getting soaked by all the tins of lager
yeah.
getting sprayed everywhere. It was
Mm.
hilarious. It was a great laugh.
Probably Dale spraying you with it all, was it?
I don't, I don't remember, but it was just funny. There's still you see it on YouTube because I was watching it recently, and it's
Yeah,
just it was funny looking back at it because it seems like it's such a long time ago. It just
yeah,
seems
I know.
mad. I mean, it
No,
seems
aye.
mad now. So in terms of obviously one in our cups with Brora as well. Which ones kind of stood out for you, would you say?
Cup wins. There was a couple good away ones. I can't remember who was it we actually played in the Scottish Cup. But it was one of the third round ones that we won away. Um, could it have been East Fife? I can't remember. We scored late on. I'd actually came off with a hamstring injury, and I remember us scoring right at the death. And the dugout is hilarious. The dugout, the camera was obviously from behind the dugout, and the goal goes in, and all the subs and I think was Tokes the manager maybe. But anyway, everyone's up off the bench and sprinting, and you can see me hobbling with this, pulled hamstring behind everyone and pile on, and again a great journey home. But no, we had a few really good runs in the cup, and again it's a great opportunity to give something back to the fans. They used to love coming away on cup days with us. I remember us going down to Queen of the South, playing at their place. I don't know if that it was that third round of the Scottish Cup, and we got beat, but never forget it. We played so well for the first half, and coming off the pitch at the end, we got clapped off the pitch by the Queen of the South fans, and it was brilliant because we got recognised as a good team. Um, they were obviously a few levels above us. They were fitter, sharper, and it was on the Astro. They're really slick with their passing, but I used to be so proud of how we performed in the Scottish Cup. I had some really, really good days.
Yeah, because I remember you ended up play because on that good run, where you beating a lot of League Two and League One teams, you ended up facing Kilmarnock when Steve Clark was manager.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah, so what was that experience like? Obviously, you played at grounds like that when you were in the, you know, Prem with Caley.
yeah.
So what was that like? That experience?
It was again, it was an opportunity for boys that, hadn't maybe played at a stadium like that or, hadn't played against players at that level. It was a brilliant experience for them. I loved it, and it's funny, when confidence is high in a dressing room and you're on these winning runs and cup runs and you think you're invincible. You're on the bus down the day before or in the hotel the night before thinking we could pull something off tomorrow. And in reality you're miles away from that standard and that level. Um, but everyone really believed that we could get something from the game and emptied their tanks on that pitch. But we're up against so much talent on the day and got beat convincingly in the end. Myself and Dale, I think in the middle, were playing it up against Malumbu, who went on to sign for Celtic, I think that summer. Chris Boyd was playing up top. I can't really remember any others, but a really good side at the time. But no, a great experience that, to represent Brora at that level. It was pretty special.
Yeah, so obviously you were in the Brora team that first kind of experienced the, SPFL playoffs. How what was that like? Because it was something different, obviously. Teams weren't used to, being able to have an opportunity to potentially get promoted.
Yeah. Yeah, that was something that I was really keen on doing. I know that everyone wasn't with the same mindset. Um, so that was difficult to sort of navigate through that because there was a couple of boys in the dressing room that weren't too excited by going up. But I would have loved to have gone up and taken on, League Two with that Broader side. But we just ran out of steam. There was a couple of boys away, weddings and a holiday that was booked beforehand. I think it was maybe I can't remember who it was exactly, but we're down quite a few boys on the day. I think we started with a couple of young boys in the starting 11. I was suspended for the second leg away to Montrose, so I couldn't play on the day. So it was a horrible day for me because I couldn't do anything about it. We'd drawn the first leg, done okay in the game. Probably didn't do enough, but did just okay. But then we went down there with a pretty depleted starting 11 and just fell short on the day. But it was a real hard one to take, especially when I ruled myself out the game by getting booked. It was a tough day, but they've still got aims to do that, Brora, and I hope they get there. Because it would be great to see them. It would be great to see them in League Two.
Yeah, do you reckon that team that you were in would have progressed up the leagues potentially with the amount of quality in with the
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, we had a great record against League Two sides that we play in cup games, and and similar with League One sides. Um, I definitely think if that group had stayed together, there's no reason why Brora couldn't have gone and done, um, what the likes of Cove have done, with getting another promotion in the League One. But hey, you've got to go and do it at the end of the day, and we didn't, unfortunately. But yeah, like I said, hopefully they can get there soon.
Yeah, so what would you say were your kind of biggest highlights at Brora?
Probably going that season unbeaten, and we could have done it in the cup as well, but actually got disqualified in the cup. I think there was a young boy that we'd signed, Liam Watt, that hadn't been registered for the cup game, and he came on with about 5 minutes to go, and we were beating somebody in the quarter final of the Highland League Cup, and he got booked, and it flagged up on the system that he hadn't been registered, and we ended up getting thrown out of the cup, even though we're in a winning position with 5 minutes to go. But yeah, we could have done an unbeaten treble that year if that hadn't happened, maybe. But no, to get two trophies and to go the league unbeaten was just incredible. Yeah, and I think it was that year we went off to Albufeira as a group after, which was great fun.
You moved away because I remember you saying in an article that you moved away because of work and stuff. How did you find playing at Cowdenbeath?
Cowdenbeath, yeah. So, aye, bit stop start, obviously around COVID and everything like that. Um, but no, how that came about, I'd been offered a job down in Dunfermline to work alongside Sid Mackay. I was travelling to start off with, and then decided that I would move down there, and I needed to stay fit. I needed to keep training. So there was someone that I knew who had a contact at Cowdenbeath, and I went in there, asked if I could train. Gary Boland was a manager. He said, of course, and you can, and I ended up training with Cowdenbeath, but then travelling up to driving from Dunfermline to Brora on a Saturday. And after a few weeks of doing that, I started thinking, this probably isn't for me. When I know all the boys are on a bus together, relaxing, having a beer, singing a song, and I'm sat in a car by myself driving the A9 again, aye, it was a bit of a realization that this wasn't the route to go down. But um, no, all jokes aside, that my wee boy Sonny was on the way. Um, he was born in February that year, so it was the right thing to do. And Brora were brilliant with me, released me from my contract, didn't ask for a penny for me, and I went down to sign with Cowdenbeath. But I've got a lot of good things to say about Cowdenbeath. When I went down there, Gary Boland was great with me, allowing me to train. And also the chairman, Donald Finlay, a really, really good guy, cares about his club so much. And it was a really sad day when Cowdenbeath got relegated. A horrible experience. Something that I wouldn't wish on anyone. It was an awful experience that, and you could see how much it meant to him. So it was a difficult period. Going from Brora where you're winning every week to then going into a dressing room and a side where you genuinely are getting beat every week. It was a big change, shock to the system, and yeah, a really difficult time, but one that I, can take a lot of learnings from as well. Um, but yeah, a lot of good things to say about Cowdenbeath.
Yeah, so obviously after that you went to Spartans who did the opposite in terms of the playoff. That's a different experience.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
no, that was yeah, that came about. There was a boy that was playing football with at Cowdenbeath at the time, Michael Hurd. So he went into to Spartans after he left Cowdenbeath the season before me, and they said that the gaffer had been asking about me and wanted to chat. So I went and met him, and I've got a few people that know him as well and played for him as well from the Edinburgh uni days. Um, but no. honestly, what a guy that man is. You know, really, um, really cares about Spartans. You know, he's involved in the trust. He's was the CEO until he just stepped down last year. Um, but you know what he gives back to that community is absolutely incredible, and Spartans are so lucky to have him. You know, he's the longest serving manager in the SPFL at this time, and you know there's no surprises with that because of what he gives to that club and what he gives to his players. Um, but no, you know that time going into the Lowland League, stepping down and getting back in that routine of winning games and being competitive at the top of the league again. It was a fantastic journey, and to go and win promotion through the playoffs, incredible feeling. Um, difficult, really difficult, and you saw how painful it was for Albion Rovers on the day. It's not nice. You see
Mm.
how much it means to fans and people involved in the club. It's not nice. You've got complete despair at one half of the pitch, and you know everyone just full of joy and excitement at the other half. It's a lot to take in, but no, to go and achieve that with Spartans is something that again I'm incredibly proud of.
Yeah, I was going to say, is there much players that you know in the Highland League that have won the Highland League and the Lowland League? I can't think
I
of.
can't I can't think of any. I used to wind the boys up at Spartan saying that was the only man on earth to do it, but I don't know if that's true or not. I'm sure there's plenty of guys back in the day that have won both, but I don't know of any. But nah, to say I've won both, it's it's a nice feeling, a nice feeling.
Yeah, so how would you compare the standards of the league, Lowland League and Highland League? How would you compare it?
I'd probably say quite similar, but I'd probably say there's more teams in the Lowland League at a higher standard. That's
Okay.
that's what I'd say. Brora came down to play Spartans at pre-season friendly after we'd won promotion, and they weren't in a great spot, and there was boys missing that day, on holidays and injuries and things like that, and there was a bit of a gulf between the sides on the day. But when you look at Brora's level of performance now, um, they'd be right up there in the Lowland League as well. They'd be, I would say that it's very similar at the top, but in the Lowland League, I would just say there's probably more teams outside that kind of top four that have got a decent bit of quality. So probably a more difficult league down in the Lowland, I'd say.
So in terms of obviously you came back to the Highland League with Clark. How did that kind of come about? And
Yeah, so again through work, job opportunity up north. So I was traveling, up and down the road from, year last November. So I was doing that until the summer, and then we made the decision that we're going to move back up the road as a family. So we got the house sorted in August. But word got about that I was coming back up the road, and yeah, Clark had got in touch. Um, Connor Gethins got in touch with me saying that he wanted to meet for a coffee and chat it through and see what my plans were. So we did. Yeah, we just had a chat. I was, you know, probably coming off the back of like a 3, 4 year spell of quite a lot of injuries. My body probably telling me to hang them up, but
mm,
I still felt as if I had something to give in terms of giving back to younger players and, being maybe that Grant Monroe and Ross Tokley like they were to me, could I be that figurehead in a dressing room that could help the younger boys at a Clark or whoever it was? So that's what I wanted to be, and that's where I saw myself. Had a really good chat with Connor at the time, and spoke to Granty, and we got the deal done. But I just gutted I couldn't really pay them back. Being honest with you, built my fitness up to a decent enough level, through coming on sub appearances, and then I was ready to start against Fraserburgh, and then yeah, 6 minutes in or whatever, ruptured my ACL. and I've got the operation on that on the 15th of April coming up. So yeah, really frustrating, and never thought it would go that way. I thought it would be me making the decision on my time, but sometimes life doesn't work out that way, and things are taken out of your hand, and your body tells you enough's enough. So yeah.
Yeah, so are you still looking to do kind of coaching? Are you coaching at like Clark, or what's the
Yeah. So I'm coaching at the Class Reserves now. So Granty, when I did my injury, asked if I was interested and wanted to help out. With Will and Ash, who were there at the time, and yeah, just got involved and helped them out, and took a few drills in certain sessions and started to get a real buzz for it. Um, and yeah, now myself and Chris Ross, who's ex-Clark as well, the two of us are in there, along with Gary Davidson as well as a sort of management team for the Clark's reserves, and really enjoying it. We're starting to see wee improvements in the boys, which is what we want. We just want to develop players, and we want to give them the best chance of training with the first team and getting opportunities to go and play Highland League football. So it was great to see just last weekend Struan Colley and Alfie Forsyth both get minutes in the first team. It's great. It's what we want. It's what we want to give back to these younger boys, because we were those young boys once upon a time, and we're desperate for a chance. And if we can help them get there, we'll be delighted.
yeah. So in terms of management, obviously, is that something you're wanting to do in the long term and your coaching badges and all that things?
Yeah, so yeah, management definitely does interest me. Like I said earlier on in the conversation, I love being part of a dressing room. It's the thing that if I had to give up, I would miss the most. Uh, but yeah, just have to see what happens in the future, in terms of opportunities to go and coach or manage. But I'm happy doing what I'm doing right now with Clach. Really enjoying it. Passionate about making that group of players better. And having a much better season in the North Cali League next year. But no, it's definitely something I've always had a passion for since, back in the day playing Champman until all hours, to obviously going on and playing and being involved in training sessions and match days and dressing rooms. It's something that I've obviously got a passion for. So yeah, there's maybe something in the future.
Who would you say are the best players you've played against?
Played again. So yeah, I've been on the I always try to answer this question with someone who I've actually gone toe to toe with. I've been on the pitch with some amazing players, but in terms of going head to head with them, I'd probably say the toughest tasks that I had was there was two players. One was Eremenko at Kilmarnock. I remember getting subbed on down there to go and do a job on him. I couldn't get near him. Honestly, his intelligence off the ball was incredible. His movement, his first touch was perfect. I genuinely couldn't get near him, and it was a real sort of wake up for me, that I was nowhere near that level at the time. And another one, really random, but played against Russell Latapi in a reserve game up at Caley Park one time, and again, just so intelligent. His touch, his passing, everything perfect, no mistakes. But those two were. Aye, real talents, real talents.
Yeah, on the other hand, who would be the best players you've played with, would you say?
Um, these players I've played with, going back to my time at Cali, with Johnny Hayes, you know, he was magic, absolutely brilliant. I'm sure what every fan loves to watch, you know, pace, being direct, can cross it, can score from outside the box, can take free kicks, can take, whip deliveries into the box. He was everything, you would want from a winger. And he played such a big part in what Cali achieved at the time. So yeah, he was right up there. Andy Shinnie as well when he came. What a lovely footballer to watch. Um, Great touch, great vision, moved so well with the ball. And then stepping into, time in the Highland League, I need to I need to mention my mate Dale Gillespie. He was a really special player and someone that I loved playing with. You know, we used to all the boys used to joke that I would just do all the dirty work and give the ball to him to create the magic, and I was quite okay with that. So no, it was a great playing relationship we had, and we've still got a very strong relationship to this day. So yeah, I have to give him a mention as well.
Yeah. What was your kind of favourite away day in the Highland League or?
I used to love going through Aberdeen. I used to love that. Big long journey. You knew if you won, it was a big long journey back home with a bus full of beers, sing song, karaoke, Stockton Flockabers. I used to love it. But for the big ones, not just everyone, but for the big ones, your Coves from Martin. I used to love going through it for Martin. Because they were a decent side as well, and you always used to get a right good battle with them. Um, Fraser, places like that are great, brilliant, brilliant journeys, and great challenges as well, because they're really, really strong sides.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. Hope you enjoyed my chat with Gavin. I'm interested to find out where you listen to my podcast from in terms of what country. So please get in touch on any of my social media channels or drop me an email at highlandleaguepodcast@gmail.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Hope you can join me next time for another interesting interview.